Good afternoon, everyone. We are in the Youth and Community Voices in Sustainable Development session. So if you're expecting a session on any other topic, you might be in the wrong room. And because this is the Youth in Sustainable Development session, we are going to make it interactive. There's a little bit of movement, there's some participation, and we hope that you will join us close to the front. I know it's a little bit scary to sit in the front, but I will ask some of our friends who are sitting toward the back, please join us in the first 3 rows. We have an activity involving the papers laid out on each of the seats. So please take a minute to move forward into the different rows, and you will find some papers with different colors. I hope that you will grab one set of paper, and then you will be able to participate in the activity of the workshop. Don't be shy, come to the front. We are all together, learning from each other. Welcome, welcome. For those just walking in, please take a seat in the first 3 rows and grab some paper that has colors on it. Before we get started with the topic of the session, we have a short announcement from our organizers with the ADB CSO team. And I believe if we go to the next slide, anyone who's joining us in person or on Zoom, we just want you to be aware about the privacy policy of ADB. Please share all of your views and feedback. This is an open dialogue, but of course, it needs to remain respectful. And there will be recording of this session as well as, oh, thank you, Ice. There will be recording of this session. And if you have any concerns, there is an email address to share. I think with that, we are able to get started soon. There's an app called Pigeonhole that you will be able to submit questions anonymously as you wish, as you prefer. You will also see that we have an interactive activity that will happen throughout this panel. I think these are the reminders just for the virtual participants. Come on in. Anyone who's walking in, please join us close to the front. In the first 3 rows, we have an activity that you will need the papers for, which is on each of the seats. Don't be shy, don't be shy. Okay. I think IT team, we are hoping for our slides when you are ready. Yes, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you've had an energizing day, a lot of interesting conversation, new people to meet and to discuss with. This is the session all about bringing in youth and vulnerable voices, especially for young people and women, into the programs that we design. And we want to learn from each other and also learn from you about how we can make sure that vulnerable voices are included in all of the work that we do. And we, especially as part of the civil society program, believe that this is really, really important. Come on in and take a seat in the front. We have some seats up here with papers. I hope everyone will be able to grab for their paper when the activity begins. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the purpose of today's session. Today, we will be discussing about the role of community engagement in sustainable development, why it's important, and especially how we can make that happen. Of course, on paper, if I say that we want to listen to vulnerable communities, we want to involve young people, no one would disagree, and it's an easy philosophy to agree with. But how do we do it in practice, and how do we do it in a way that is meaningful? We also want to understand what role each sector plays in listening to vulnerable voices. I'm hoping to go to the next slide, IT team, but I think there we go. Thank you so much. Maybe you are wondering, who am I? What are we doing here? I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Molly Stoneman. I am the Partnerships and Development Director with Youth for Road Safety, or YORS. We are an organization that works with and for young people to make cities more sustainable, healthy, clean, and we believe all of that can be unlocked through transport and mobility systems. We work on everything from safe school zones to public transport to cycle lane design and pedestrian walkability. And all of these are the things that make our cities more livable and happy for its citizens. We have also developed a number of award-winning methodologies that are all around training, policy analysis and design, community consultation, and innovation entrepreneurship for young people. So we want to bring some of those lessons to you. We tend to apply them to the transport and urban design sector, but actually they apply to really any sector. And we've partnered before as well to make this possible to unlock climate, health, and education benefits. We work all over the world. We are a global organization. And in fact, Youth for Road Safety we consider ourselves an umbrella organization for a lot of different youth movements that care about urban development and sustainable development. We also represent one of the largest international young professionals network working in transport and sustainable mobility. We'll hear from some of our young professionals members today who are also experts in their own right. And in particular, about 1/3 of our members are based in Asia Pacific. So this is a huge region with a lot of activity and a lot of motivated young people who want to be a part of the solution. Our work tends to fall across 3 different pillars. We work in mobilizing youth for action. This is all about giving young people leadership opportunities, opportunities for innovation and testing new ideas. We also work in advocacy and policy design, both with young people and for the benefit of young people. And we upskill the leaders of tomorrow as well as the government and decision makers of today so that everyone is aware about intergenerational collaboration. What does that look like? How do we measure it? In general, our motto is that there should be nothing about youth without youth. So any programs that are working for the benefit of young people should include their voices and their consultation. Okay, enough about Youth for Road Safety. Let's meet the rest of our panel. I want to give you a quick introduction and we will all have a round to tell you a bit more about ourselves. And then we will start the debate. This is the interactive activity where we will use the papers that are left around the different chairs on the room. We want to hear your voice because this is a workshop about community consultation. How do we want your voice to also matter in this panel discussion? We will show a series of questions and statements, and we want to hear from you. The panel will respond as well, and then we will summarize what we've learned from each other. So, to get us started, I want to hear from each of our panelists and hear from you. What would you consider to be meaningful community engagement? We can all talk about community engagement, but how do we make sure it's meaningful? And I will first pass the mic.
Should I start?
Sure.
Yes, okay. My name is Hideaki Iwasaki. I'm currently looking after the department that covers transport and energy sector operations. We have about 300 people in the department, and they engage with our clients, both governments and also in some instances, private sector entities in policy dialogue, technical assistance to reform institutions, improve capacities of our counterparts, and also prepare projects, and also help them implement projects. And to me, a meaningful consultation is something that will bring about positive benefits, outcomes, and make the investment sustainable. The reason I say investment sustainable is most of the infrastructure investments, these are long-term investments. And if you don't do things right, damages and harms will remain for a long time. and it would cost a lot of money to correct those damages or harms. So to me, I think that would be one measure to gauge whether the consultation was done in a meaningful way or not. Let me stop here.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohammed Mansouri, and I'm Assistant Director General and Director of the FAO Investment Center. So FAO is the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. So we are not in cities, but food is in cities, okay? Even if, you know, food is produced in rural areas, and the food systems include both the consumers and the producers. So today, the FAO Investment Center, just a few words, we work in 120 countries in the world. And basically, we support financial institutions in designing investment programs, investment strategies. So in that regard, we have wonderful collaboration with the Asian Development Bank, but we have also similar collaborations with the World Bank, with the African Development Bank, and virtually IFAD, of course, EBRD, EIB, virtually all the IFIs of the world. The scale of what we do is not insignificant. We help design in terms of public investments, something last year to $7.8 billion US dollar in 45 countries, for example. And we also work on private investments in order to enable them, enable more and better private investments together. We also help a lot with policy dialogue, and in that regard, you know, the inclusiveness of that policy dialogue is very important. And we support also a large portfolio of projects that are being implemented, you know, about 51 billion US dollar a year. So this said, you know, behind every single project, there are people, okay? And I think this is really where, you know, we see the engagement. So in a way, investments of today is the impact of tomorrow. If we don't invest well today, don't lie to ourselves about the impact of tomorrow. And the way you do those investments is critical. So engaging the communities, the youth, the rural, the urban, women, producers, but also helping them organize themselves so that, you know, the institutions that are built continue delivering the results, you know, when those projects are over. I think this is really where the engagement becomes very concrete and becomes so critical for sustainability. So to me, meaningful community engagement is not just a box, you know, or it's not a box to tick when we prepare investment programs or strategy, but it is really about engaging with the people of the community so that, you know, they make the choices, they participate with their own governments as civil society, or are specific groups. For example, the small-scale farmers are critical to, you know, the production of food in the world to feed ourselves. And they need, you know, to have access to resources to do that. They need to be organized. And hence, some very clear, you know, activities are needed. First, the targeting mechanisms for each project targets the vulnerable groups, the people who are in need, or the people who can unleash more, you know, capacity developments for the people, you know, over the long run to organize themselves and to get access to resources, to knowledge, to finance as they go, and then also to engage in genuine policy dialogue with their own, you know, governments, but also with the private sector, with the other actors in the agri-food system. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ulfi Porada from Indonesia, and I'm representing transportology as a transport analyst in those NGOs. So transportology is a NGO that works for the advocacy on sustainable transport in Indonesia, in mid-sized cities in Indonesia, where we focus more on the road safety and also the active transport, especially for the unheard voices like the women, youth, the elderly. So for me, when we're asking about what is the meaningful engagement, I say that it could something start with the shifting our mindset from the consulting to a community to co-creating with the community. So we are actively seeking the unheard voices from the youth, from the women, from the low-income resident, and etc. And then after that, when we are able to secure that, we are able to use that process and able to like build the sense of belonging. That's when I say that it's meaningful engagement. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. So a very good afternoon. I'm Shivani Khurana from India. I represent Rahagiri Foundation, an NGO. So Rahagiri Foundation is a team of young people, young architects, designers, planners. So for us, when we call as how much importance is, of a youth in this community, we feel empowered because we are the ones working for changing the narrative of transforming urban mobility in India, largely led by young team members and led by women leaderships in our organization. Coming on to the community engagement part, the organization was started with the program called Rahagiri Days. So that program invited thousands of people on the streets in order to give them a sense of reclaiming the street. When there was the street with open spaces, streets with clean air, streets with a sense of that they can do multiple activities rather just driving the cars. So they felt the need of having more such streets in their area. And that engagement created the demand within their local communities, and which led to the scale up of the initiative. So Rahagiri Day started from one city where a large participation was young people, mostly 60% of them. And then it was expanded to 90 plus cities in India. So it automatically picked up the momentum, the engagement, strengthened the agenda of having, reclaiming the streets, having the ownership of the streets. So because we work in the mobility sector, so we work for clean air, we work for clean streets, healthy streets, and that's like a very one powerful tool that we have and we are very proud of. And I can show a glimpse of like the community engagement part. So that's the kind of engagement that we are able to attract when we do one sort of event. And this we do a lot in the capital city post-COVID, but pre-COVID it was happening a lot in India. So we really believe that community engagement, especially with the participation of young people, will drive one idea into actual implementation. Yeah. Okay.
I'll have you hold on to the microphone, Shivani. You will be our first response when we get to the next section. Well, you all know everything about us. We want to learn a bit more about you. So I would like you to please stand up if the following statement applies to you. If you identify as someone who is a musician or really enjoys music in a passionate way, will you please stand up? Oh, we have a lot of musicians in the room. Okay, maybe some guitar, piano, singing. Thank you so much. If you are someone who identifies as an athlete or a total sports lover, will you please stand up as well? Athletes and sports lovers. Oh, yeah, and the Olympics are coming soon. That will be fun. And if you have already tried the famous Uzbek dish of plav, if you have already tried this dish, please stand up. Hopefully we all tried it at lunch. Oh, it was so delicious. I love it. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about you. But your role is not done yet. There are some pieces of paper all over the room, and you will see that there's a green sign, a yellow sign, and a red sign. If you do not have some of these pieces of paper near to you, will you please grab some? Actually, we have a few extra sets sitting around the room, especially in the front. I see a few, and maybe some of our volunteers in the blue suits in the back, if you could help to distribute the signs. You have a very important job today. This session is about listening to community feedback, and while we can only do it in a small way during this session, we still want to make sure that every voice in the room is represented. So, coming soon, we will show a series of statements to the room, and we want to hear from you. What do you think about that statement? How does it apply to you? You will vote using these signs, and our panel will respond to how the mood of the room is feeling, if it matches with their own experience or not. So just to make sure we are all on the same page, if you see a statement or hear something, even from the panelists, and you really, really agree, I would like you to hold up your green sign. If you hear something that you really disagree, hold up your red sign. I do not agree. If there's something where you're not sure, or maybe you could use more information before you decide, of course you can use the yellow sign. Let's give it a try. One quick practice. Here's your test. I prefer chocolate over vanilla. I prefer chocolate over vanilla. For me, this is true, so I will hold up the green sign. No, we have some vanilla lovers in the room. Maybe someone is waiting for strawberry, pistachio. Actually, a lot of people in the room prefer chocolate over vanilla. I'm very surprised. You have all passed the test. So now we go on to the more interesting questions. And we want to hear from you. The first statement is, I believe youth and women deserve a meaningful influence in my work. And you can decide how you prefer. Yes, we see mostly green, a sprinkle of yellow. It's nice. I don't see any red yet. All right, I think we should respond to this from the panel. So first, we will start with Shivani and then go down the row ending in Ulfi. Please go ahead. And I will strictly keep everyone to 2 minutes so we can hear from everyone. Thank you.
Okay, I'm very excited to see that most of the people use the green cards, but there were some using yellow. That means like in their work, there is little less participation of youth and women. If they can, give the answer to why yellow, I would love to address their constraints. So I think, sir, in the second row, you used yellow placard that you don't completely, align with the statement. Or maybe there are some, differences with the green ones. So if you can, take a mic and just let us know and help us with why yellow, so we'll be able to explain on this. But speaking on just one-liner, I would rather say that when we see a problem as young people, we find our ways to change. So if young people will not be incorporated into decision-making things, we will find our ways to, change the narrative and drive the decisions. And same happens with the women. So it's better that we build a system where the decision of young and women, are incorporated systematically. So I'll conclude here, but I would also like to listen from Sir. Yeah.
I think we have a microphone coming to you now.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. Of course, youth and women are very important in any decision making. But I think just outlining them and just separating them from the rest is a kind of negative discrimination, because when it comes to issues, everyone should be equal. When you just point out that these are the separate ones, you treat them as a kind of maybe even less important, or like you're treating them not as equal. So I don't think that you should definitely point out that they deserve a meaningful influence. What do you mean by meaningful influence? I think everyone is important. And when it comes to issues, each and every stakeholder has a say, and I believe that it's just difficult to understand why you should separate youth and women as a kind of separate group than the rest. So I don't really think that they should be a kind of separated from the rest. Thank you.
I'll just take 30 seconds to just share the narrative here. I completely agree with your point that it is depicting a negative thing. But currently, the question is, in terms of when we talk about the mobility, 50 to 60% of people affected in the road crashes or are, the vulnerable category in the age group wise are the young people. So they are the ones dying the most from the age group of 18 to like 25. So that's where it comes to have their say in the decision making. And yes, women bear the burden of socioeconomic challenges. So yes, if we empower them, we make them even stronger. So that is not negatively taking them out, but rather than inclusively, working with them. So yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I think this is already becoming a very interesting conversation. When I talk about my work is about these two heavily male-dominated infrastructure sectors. And those who are making decisions, who are designing, who are implementing projects, mostly they are men, probably middle-aged men. So I think there's a reason why we listen to youth and women to change the way projects are conceived and designed and executed, and probably later, probably utilized. So I think there's a reason, and they deserve a meaningful influence in the projects or work I do. I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, we have to base our decision making on data and science. So just women represent 41% of the labor force in the agri-food systems globally. In developing countries, they produce more than 60% of the food. They have access only to 15% of land. So in a way, these are facts. It's not. So if these are facts, we need to do something about them, okay? In order exactly to be on the equal side of things. So it's not a political vision. It is really looking at what is happening. And these figures are global, but they vary hugely between countries, of course. Now, if you are to work on land tenure issues, for example, in a country, how would you do it? What is the type of technology of cadastre that would enable, better access to land to youth? Actually, they suffer from very similar issues. So I think maybe if we just put it like issues, we document them and we try to find solutions to those issues. Do we have equal access? Do we have, so we have a lot of, for example, poverty that is distributed geographically, but we have also poverty that is distributed socially. And if we are really, to address it, we need, I think, to take that data and then to convert it into, into action. I think, I'm speaking from, the perspective of my organization. This year, FAO has declared 2026 as the year of the International Year of the Woman Farmer. And we hope that this will, gain momentum and to find solutions, and also internationally it is global, but in each country and in each location to try to look at the condition of those farmers and to find the right solutions. And we have also annually, a forum. This year is from the 8th to the 16th of October in Rome, which is called the Youth Forum, okay? From all over, they come and they share, There's a lot of energy there. Actually, there are also indigenous people, parts of that forum, indigenous youth and so on. And I think we need to keep that momentum, but the solutions are to be found at country level. And each country with its own, characteristics and its own values and its own has to find, the solutions to the issues that, it identifies. Thank you.
So I also choose green for this statement because yes, when we're saying why is only youth, why is only women? Because that's the unheard voices that we often forget when we're doing planning, developing a country or develop cities. That's the voices that we often left behind, and we didn't take any voices of them. So that's what we are trying to do, to push for those voices to be heard in terms of in the process of the planning and the process of doing something for the city and for the nation. So that is why I believe that those voices are important. That is why it needs to be part of the process of the planning.
Thank you all, and I'm glad that we were able to hear as well from the audience. There's no wrong answer or right answer to these statements, but of course, we want to have a mix of discussion. I'm going to pause on additional comments in the end, just in the interest of time, so we can get through more of the interactive activity. And at the end, I hope we have time for more questions. Now, I will have Ulfi hold on to the microphone, and for this next question, we will go in the opposite direction. So I hope you are ready with your colored signs. We are ready to vote on our next statement. How do you feel about this statement? I see measurable returns on projects with high community engagement. You can interpret that how you wish. Are those returns in financing? Are those returns in community support? Are those returns in physical infrastructure, in art, in murals? Do you see the returns, or in other words, the benefits of working with high community engagement in your projects? This one's a little bit harder, so I see some shy faces in the audience. Okay, this one's a little bit more mixed, and we thought it would be. That's okay. We want to have an interesting discussion. So we still saw a majority of green reactions, but also some yellow. And I think it can be really difficult to understand, how do we measure what community engagement looks like, and what are we expecting out of it on the other side? So first, I would like to hear a response from Ulfi.
So yes, because I see some of them green and yellows. I kind of word also. Should I choose a green or also yellow for this one? But yeah. So for this statement, I kind of prefer to choose the green. The reason, I want to give an example. One of the project that we've doing. So for the past 3 years, we collaborated with colleagues from different CSOs to co-organize the movement called Chain Swap. Have anyone's heard about Chain Swap before? So yes, Chain Swap is actually a global movement about community-led walking conversations, where we walk together in a neighborhood in our cities and talking with the community about what can we improve together in terms of the cities, because they are the one who live in their city and they're the one who knows the best about their city. And so in terms of the engagement with them. So in 2023, we started with the 10 cities in across 5 countries. And then last year, we had a 25 walks across 16 cities across 7 countries, where one of the example that we have kind of led to the improvement that I want to share, it's the one that I organized in 2024, where we we had a walk with 15 participants from different background, from different ages. We walk around 3 kilometers while we doing the walking assessment in our neighborhood, in our suburb. And then we had a discussion on how should we improve this area in order for you guys to walking again in the same route. So from those input, actually, we took that and then give it back to the developer. And then last year, the developer using those inputs and using to improve it the sidewalks in those roads. And then we're planning actually to revisit this May because it's Jan's Walk also, as in every May. We plan to visit the same route again to find what's kind of the difference on the improvement that they make from the developers. And so the initial finding from the participants that they give it a rating like 2.5 on the walkability index of the road out of 5. And we're kind of like want to see what's different and if they're gonna like put the different scores on those routes. And also what's the one thing that we kind of like built in community engagement is the sense of belonging to the places. So that's what happened in this walk. So for the first walk, with the 15 participants in 2024, we kind of like after that walk, we had several walks in those suburbs, but like different routes. And then 50% of the participants joined again on the different type of the walks at different routes. So that's kind of like the sense of belonging that we built by only walking. So that is why I see that that's a measurable returns in terms of the CSO perspective with the high community engagement.
Thank you, Ulfi. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. In my experience, there is no doubt that, when you have community engagement, you have better results, better measurable results and so on. Now, there is engagement, but you can also have investment programs that invest in the organizations of the communities themselves and the capacities of those communities. And I think, those show very good results, but they are very different. They require more time, they require more energy. You don't disperse very quickly because it's not like, sectors like infrastructure or energy where you can really, have big tickets and so on. But that element of organization, so building the institutions of the people over the long run, is really very, very meaningful. And especially if you are to work with the communities themselves to deliver some of the goods and services, but also for the communities themselves to build their capacities, to have better access to, in our farmers, for example, to have better access to technology, to advice, to finance, and that requires the capacity by themselves, which is by itself an investment. So in a way, I think community engagement is always good, but if you invest in those communities to have, better capacity and then a better say, then involved better in policy dialogue, then it is even much higher returns. Thank you.
I will talk about my personal involvement in a project through which I saw clear impact, positive impact of community engagement on the performance of the project I was involved in. Early 2000s, India embarked on a rural road program to basically connect all the settlements with motorable roads. It was a massive program. And to implement this project, naturally, you don't have the financial resources to acquire land. So they basically asked the local communities to donate the land. But in doing so, they have come up with a very elaborate consultation process. And we were also asked to come in and basically refine the process and also make sure that that process is followed. And I was part of the team to author the community engagement framework, which has been used for ADB financing in this national program. And in that, initially, actually, we got a lot of resistance from government officials because they were afraid that sticking to those steps in the framework would delay the projects, and probably they would not be able to reach the target the government then set to connect, how many villages by a certain target year. But actually, in the end, I got a very vivid feedback from one government official at India's state level. He thanked me for strictly enforcing the steps because he saw better performance in the road sections which were financed by ADB, under which we strictly monitored the adherence to those steps. And the measure indication was that basically they were able to award contracts quicker because they cannot award contracts unless land is ready. And many government financed sections, land was never ready, so they could not start the work. But at least ADB finance section, there were better performance in terms of contract award. Eventually, those roads which were contracted, they were completed. And some of the elderly people actually told me that they never dreamed that they would see a paved road in their villages in their lifetime, but now they are seeing it. It was a very vivid, feedback from the beneficiaries. Thank you.
Okay. So I see measurable returns on project with community engagement. Some of the members in the hall used a yellow card. I believe that the yellow card might be because of the economic returns that they are thinking. But here, as CSOs, we think of measurable returns as social returns, environmental returns, and then we need the help of like ADB officials or people in the room to translate these returns into economic returns, if that is what is required. But then I would cite this from a reference example. Like if we as an organizations were doing workshops. Workshops is walking plus workshops. So we were teaching community members, including, district collectors, mayors, or other decision makers also, to see what a right kind of infrastructure is actually looks like. And we were kind of advocating with the community and building their capacity and awareness on a certain subject. Now, this movement has led us from a project. So when we started in like pre-COVID 2021 or like 2019, we started a project. It took us 4 years. That project was very difficult, challenging. It had no ownership. It had no idea about any utilities or any of the existing criteria. But then it took us 4 years to build one project. But after that, we had multiple workshops in a year. Like every week, we were engaging with the community and bringing them on the streets and telling them about that street. Later, in the next 4 months, we were able to build one more street. And now, this concept was taken and approved by our chief minister, our senior leaders in the regional associations, that these kind of model are like a model examples for next 100 kilometer of streets in Gurgaon. And then these kind of ideas will be scaled up in other regions also, because we see that when we want to scale up something, we need the community buy-in. And the measurable returns are by saving their lives, by saving the environment, and we as CSOs are limited on that understanding more than the financial terms of returns. So we might need your help to translate those returns into the numbers, But yes, we are very proud when we say that this year we have reduced 12% accidents, which means that, 300 or 200 people are not dying on the road. So for us, that's a measurable impact. And that is all done with the help of community engagement. So yeah.
Thank you all. Powerful examples. And we can leave the microphone with Director General Hide. You will be the first speaker of the next statement. Since we're doing well on time, I'll just share one more example about how we can see the returns on high community engagement. There's a project that Youth for Road Safety partnered with an organization called EAST in our neighbor, Tajikistan, from where we are now. And we led a project in Dushanbe that was all about cycle lane infrastructure and having better connected cycle lanes so that people who didn't have a car or couldn't afford a car were able to better use their bicycle to get around the city. It involved a lot of community engagement, and it takes time, which is the trade-off. But by taking that time, it also built ownership and it built trust. And through that trust and very high community support, we started with a very low, small seed budget, essentially, of about 5,000 euros. The government has seen so much support and investment from the communities who are now using these cycle lanes that they have now matched with an additional 300,000 euros over the past 4 years. And because the people are using their cycle lanes, they're also seeing reduced costs to the healthcare system and less wear and tear on the roads, since less cars and vehicles are using those roads on the day-to-day. So we don't always see the returns immediately, and this is one of the trade-offs of community engagement. But you will see returns in the long run if you have the framework in place to measure it over time. We have our next question, and just so you know, we are tracking some of the questions coming in through Pigeonhole, and I hope that we have time at the end to get to more questions. So grab your voting signs. I want to see the red, the green, the yellow. I want to hear from your voices. And with this question, let's hear from you. Multilateral development banks, like the ADB, like the World Bank, like the Inter-American Development Bank, these multilateral development banks, their frameworks and loan criteria clearly involve a community role. Maybe we are not all experts on the criteria and the frameworks in the room. That's okay. We want to hear from your perspective. Do you see a community role in how the frameworks and loan criteria work for now? Okay, we have a pretty good mix, I think, in the room. I'm seeing maybe mostly yellow. We're not all exactly sure about what the criteria are. Maybe it looks different for each sector. We see a sprinkling of red, a sprinkling of green. Okay, this is good. We wanted a mixed reaction in the room because it shows we don't really know. So I have to turn it over to our expert. And first we will hear from Director General Hide. Please go ahead.
Yes, I saw a lot of red and some yellow, not many green. I think this is the background for the changes in our environmental and social framework to include a standard on engagement and stakeholder engagement and information disclosure. So I take that, there's still a clear message to us that we should endeavor to properly implement the new standard. There are 10 standards now, and the 10th standard is on this stakeholder engagement and information disclosure. So, and the new environmental and social framework got effective just this January. So we are only 4 months into the implementation. We'll be applying the new framework to projects whose concepts are being approved this year. So the actual implementation you would probably need to see happening slightly later when the projects are presented by the government to ADB for our financing. But we are making sure that the new standard will be properly applied. And also in this, the key is probably raise the awareness on the parts of our borrowers, client governments, that there's a clear benefit actually in early engagement with stakeholders. The episode I shared with you, that type of episode, if we can accumulate many of them, probably we can be more convincing to our counterparts that it's good to engage stakeholders early. And also probably if we do case project by project, setting standards and rules, which would be too costly in any case, both on us and on the part of the community. There must be some predictability in the processes, steps. So based on our standard, there must be work to develop more detailed procedures to be used by our clients. And ideally, those procedures or steps should be owned by our counterparts and should be applied not only to ADB or World Bank finance projects, but all the projects to happen in their jurisdiction. I'll stop here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, again, the type of projects we're dealing with, so you can have criteria for social inclusion, but when you come, for example, to natural resource management, those criteria are even more, rigorous because it's about the rights, who is, using that land, that forestry, fisheries sector, it's the same. So you have, I think, a wide range of, criteria, but that would apply more rigorously in those spaces where, where people can claim rights, have rights, especially the communities. So this is really in the realm also of the country's, legal system, regulatory system, and so on. And usually what is done is that you review that legal system and so on in order before the investments. And then it is accompanied by a dialogue, a consultation effort, and so on. And this varies from country to country. So I would say that MDBs are well equipped with, now the implementation at country level, and the legal frameworks at country level and so on are also very critical. But the most complex projects in that area in our field are the projects of land administration and land tenure. Okay, they are sometimes incredibly difficult to come up with. So when it is urban land, it's easier because the value of the land is so high that you find solutions. But in the rural areas, it is very, very, very complex. But when you invest, you ease sometimes those constraints, okay? So if you are going to invest in an irrigation scheme, the value of that land will be much higher, because then it can be really a win-win-win for everyone, for the public sector, of course, for the private sector, and for the farmer communities. Thank you.
Thank you. So actually, for this statement, I'm really eager to hear more perspective from the ADB itself. So thanks to DJ Hide for the discussion. And also, I'm eager also to hear more from the audience because there are so many different colors that we can see from the audience. But I think from the CSO perspective, in terms of clearly involve a community role in the frameworks and a loan criteria. We know that in the big grant project, in the national or like in the country that we want to see the community role, community in the room from the identification phase, because like DJ Hide said earlier, it costs money to fix the home, so it's better that we can start from the identification phase rather than it's already too late to fix that. So yes, I think I want to hear more about the perspective of this statement from the audience, especially from the CSO perspective that attends today. So thank you for that.
And last but not least.
Okay, I think I agree with Molly, with Ulfi, that we need to hear from the audience about this, why so many reds and why yellow and why green. But I can just simply say that, CSOs can do what governments cannot. So if government decides a policy, CSOs work at the ground level and strengthen the bottoms-up approach to actually bring that policy into reality. So I see a clear green that it should be there, but currently it is there or not is something that I need you guys to answer. So I'll leave it to this statement. But yes, if we are like in India, if we are pushing for EV policies and we are transitioning to electric vehicles, the agenda of 2030 is little far from reality, but if there is a community buy-in, they understand about the positives of these transitions, they will automatically shift towards cleaner fuels. So this is kind of a thing that we can do better than I think so. Like CSOs have better grassroots level coordination, so they can engage better with the communities. So yeah.
Thank you all. Well, we had a mixed reaction in the room, and I think what that shows is there's a knowledge gap or maybe a transparency gap. It could very well be that these frameworks and a new inclusion policy that we're hearing about, it's already in place, but we also need to continue the work to learn more about it. I think that's the role of ADB and of the multilateral development banks to make that transparent. For the CSO folks in the room, it's also on us to keep making noise to governments so that as they are working on their loan packages, they think to build in that community engagement role. So I think we have a role to play as well to make noise and to keep sharing about what the benefits are for community engagement in different ways. Just to echo Ulfi's point as well about not waiting until the program is already designed. If we look at the consultation phase and the needs assessment phase before the program is rolled out, we can see there are a lot of different ways to build in community voices. And I'll give two very quick examples, but we can do it at a large scale and at a small scale. At a large scale, we recently worked with the government of Sao Paulo in Brazil, who are designing their first province level or state level action plan around road safety. And they decided that they wanted to have a large-scale Youth Voices campaign. There was a social media and traditional media campaign. They've collected almost 20,000 responses from young people all over Sao Paulo about what their daily commutes and experience of the streets look like. So that's a way to go really broad. On the other hand, you can go deep. And we've also partnered with the city of Birmingham in the United Kingdom. And in Birmingham, we are training 20 young people to be master focus group consultation facilitators. So they have been trained and then they go out into the community. They work with faith groups, they work with football clubs, they work with universities to lead different focus groups across the city and collect more at a small scale targeted feedback from youth. So there are different levels to do it, but in any case, before the design of your strategy plan, your action plan, it is important to hear from those voices and not just make them a consultation at the very beginning, but include in the co-design phase and even at the leadership phase. Well, we have our next question. So I hope you are ready with your voting stickers. So I want to see the greens, the yellows, the reds. And for our next statement, will you please respond to this statement? Governments demonstrate genuine commitment to bringing in vulnerable voices through their strategies and plans. It's a bit long, so take a minute to think through from your perspective, governments, are they demonstrating a genuine commitment to bring in vulnerable voices through their strategies and plans? I see some yellow, I see some red. It's okay, there's no wrong answers, there's no right answers. Yes, definitely a mix of yellows and reds. I think I see one green, one or two greens. Yes. Okay, I see three greens. I think the majority of the room feels more yellow, maybe more leaning red. There are no wrong answers. And of course, we want to hear from our panel. So for this question, we'll start, Mr. Mansouri, with your response.
Yeah, so I'm quite agnostic on those things. So I think it shows really, maybe the question is too general, but I think we can all speak about very, concrete and peculiar cases where, governments have demonstrated genuine, maybe you cannot generalize it, but it is there. I think that, when you look at the strategies of many governments, the strategies are very inclusive in a way. They tend to have all the good words there and so on. The more we actually go into where you have challenges, action, and so on, the more, it can be a bit of more mixed there. But let me give you an example, in our area, working in the Jharkhand in India. And there it's a project financed by the World Bank called Johar Jharkhand Opportunities for Harnessing Rural Growth projects. So what we did there is to work, or it was financed by the World Bank, but FAO could bring, knowledge and innovations and approaches. And one of them is through a system that is called the Farmer Field Schools for women, to really enhance the capacity of women to manage livestock, okay? So it's a model. It has been really, disseminating very, very quickly. And you could see the emergence of women entrepreneurs, as a result of that after a few years. It is called Pashu Saki. I'm not sure I pronounce it well. So it serves 100 farmers and over 1,000 livestock, providing services to improve their productivity of the livestock, but also the markets access, the farmer training, and risk mitigation. And actually that model has been then blessed by the government itself in order to be disseminated in other areas. So I just threw this very small example. I mean, it's not so small because, the scale in India is always quite massive. You can, maybe just point to something that governments will adhere to something when it is concrete and it works sometimes, okay? So if you come with things, you demonstrate that they are working, and basically you show the results, then there is much more potential for investments, and therefore scaling up of those approaches. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Ulfi.
Okay, so for this statement, I'm going to go with the yellow. So yes, so I'm from Indonesia, so I want to talk about the Indonesia government specifically. So I could see the efforts are happening, but there's a difference between commitment on paper and commitment in practice. And in Indonesia specifically, the gap is quite hard to ignore. That's why I choose yellow for this. So in the national levels documents, we can see that there's a vision on a commitment on terms of like gender equality and also inclusive. But in terms of when it go down to the regional levels and city levels, the translations quite varies, and more the translation to the strategies and plans. It's for the technical agency. It's more to the infrastructures rather than picking up the vulnerable voices. And so I kind of reflected this is on my own research. So I assessed the gender mainstreaming and also mobility of care in urban planning, development planning in 5 cities across Indonesia, where the finding was the vulnerable groups in terms of like the strategies and the plans. When they mention the vulnerable groups for the strategies included in the plans, it's more siloed to the certain agency. For example, Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, and also the Ministry of Social Agency. So yes, for the technical agency, they're just like safely going with the infrastructures and kind of like forget the vulnerable voices. And then that is why what happened with the CSOs in our country, in almost cases, it was external organization like the international development partners, the CSOs, and also the research institution that drove the engagement with the vulnerable community. And yes, the government responded when pushed. So kind of like thinking that, but responding when pushed is not same as the genuine commitment. That's why I choose yellow for this one.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would say green in terms of on paper and red in terms of execution. Because in India, we do have right kind of statements to work for the vulnerable communities. There is evident data to say that these are the vulnerable communities. But when it comes to fund allocation, somehow the underpass is approved, built in just 3 months. But when it comes to painting a zebra crossing, it takes 3 years maybe, and still it is not considered as important. So we need to constantly push the government to finance for the vulnerable community, not just in papers, but actually bring them to the reality. So yeah, I mean, like it is the need of the hour, and we should together, come together and work with the government to push this agenda. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, if I am to provide my answer, probably it will be yellow to red, honestly speaking. And as my FAO colleague mentioned, and many other colleagues mentioned, actually on paper, there are a lot of nice things talked about in their strategies and plans, but execution is a challenge. And that's where I think MDB should be coming in. And actually, we don't need to invent our own requirements, but just ask our counterparts to implement what they have said they would do. And in the case of the Rural Roads program in India, actually, they themselves come up with some elaborate steps, but they were struggling to implement them. And we just asked them to implement those steps to involve community before they complete the design. And that somehow, in my view, worked well. Of course, there must have been a lot of issues still, but it was one example. And and another angle is when a project is posed to us for financing, it's always too late, actually, too late. So they should internalize the planning process to translate plans into actual projects. And in that, they should include steps to engage with communities, listen to communities' views. If they are not there, actually, when they come up with a project for our financing, it's already half cooked. Our interventions scope is quite limited. But there's a limitation to what we can do. So I think we should work with them to develop those procedures to translate plans, strategies into actions.
Thank you. It sounds like, in fact, the panel and the audience share a lot of agreement. We see that the words and the vision is green. Any government, if you asked, Do you want to be listening to young people, to people with disabilities, to women from low-income areas? And everyone would say yes. But we have limited resources and limited time. Some things that I just heard from the panel is not only limited money, and that is a real limit in financing, but there's also sometimes a limit in data and evidence that will justify taking that extra action. There's a limit in time. And so we have to be the ones who are vocalizing and pushing for these types of programs that will overcome the limitations or show the justification. We have one more question, so I hope you haven't left your signs behind. And for this final question, we want to hear from you based on today's discussion. What do you think? Youth have valuable perspectives that can help shape the mobility, health, employability, and climate future that they will inherit. Youth have valuable perspectives that can help shape the mobility, health, employability, and climate future that they will inherit. What do we think? I see mostly green, a little bit of yellow. Okay, so far in this panel, we have been convincing about the value of these perspectives, but of course there is still limits on the ways of measuring and the ways of financing. So in our remaining time, I want to invite the panel to give a 1-minute closing summary of your perspective on the value of community engagement, especially with youth and women in mind. I also want to highlight that we've had submissions of questions also asking you about the role of disability access, especially for visually impaired or audio impaired. So if you would like to comment or integrate that answer into your final statement, you are welcome to do so as well. Perhaps for this, we will start with the microphone already in Director General Hide's hand, and then we go to Shivani, and then to Assistant Director General Mansouri, and then finally with Ulfi, if that's all right with you. So please, let's hear your 1-minute summary grand statement on the value of community engagement.
Okay, it's not easy, but I'll try. As I said, community engagement is really central in delivering impactful and sustainable and effective development. And youth would have valuable perspectives when we talk about infrastructure investments, which would last long. So, and they will be the ones which would be looking after the investment. So they should be involved properly in making the investment right. Regarding the considerations to those, physically impaired, people, I think it's important that while probably we should properly listen to them each time we go for investment, but we also encourage our counterparts to come up with some standards, procedures, so they don't have to raise voice every time there's a project. I'll stop here.
Thank you.
So I think that youth bring, energy and urgency to any challenge better than any of, in the audience. So I also believe that youth see a situation differently. They see a challenge through a different perspective, and they will find the way to change the narrative either way. So it's better that we create the system where their requirements or where their decision making is well planned and incorporated, because this country or this nation or this world is for the youth, and we are the young people, and we know how to make the change, and we need a proper decision making system so that we can be heard. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Over to Mr. Mansouri.
Yeah, thank you. In the agri-food systems, we are faced with a major issue, which is the aging population of farmers. In many countries, the average age is 50, 60 now. It's the average, okay? It means that you have very old men and women that are still, cultivating their land and so on. So how can you get more, youth in that space? I think it's a big question. Of course, they won't engage, on the same terms as their parents. They don't want, because it's associated with very hard life, which is very right, actually. So it is about inventing the agriculture and the agri-food of tomorrow, okay? And here, I think that some countries, especially in Asia, have done, very well in terms of developing approaches and systems, combining private sector innovation, digital, in order to move forward the whole, productivity of the sector, and then enable, the youth to engage in different terms that the generation of before. And I think this is, for us, I think as human beings, is very critical. And I think there is no doubt that the youth have a huge role. By the way, 20% of the youth in the developing countries are what we call not in employment, education, and training, NEET, the needs, and so on, which also shows that there is a huge potential. So schooling, skilling the people, the youth, in order for them to have a better life, we can call it agriculture 2.0 or 3.0 tomorrow, and so on. But that goes with high levels of, investment in technology, in digital, in equipment, in infrastructure. Mechanization is still a big challenge in many of the development countries. So for me, again, looking at it, this is a huge, area of investments and of future investments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so for this statement, I think we can agree that they clearly do. And we kind of like hearing from our panels that by the examples that youth did have the role in part of like in society and building the community and building their own place to live. And yeah, so my message may be like, put trust on youth, put trust on us as a younger people who's currently working in the sector, the development planning sectors. And then there's actually one message that I want to share to the youth, maybe the one who's in the audience, but also the ones who's in online. There's a message from Jane Goodall. She was a primatologist that I really adore. So last year before she passed away, she said that find a reason, do your bit, and maybe your bit can save the world in the future.
I love that. Maybe your bit can save the world in the future. There have been some pretty compelling quotes throughout this panel. I want to send to you all just a quick summary of some things that I heard, and I hope that you also take the time to think back and reflect on some of these themes from today. Mr. Mansouri said, behind every project, there are people. That is the whole purpose of this panel. How are we designing for human-centered and people-first approaches in our work? I also liked when Ulfi mentioned that youth can go from consult to co-create. And I would say that we can even add another layer of not just co-creating projects, but leading projects and being in positions of decision-making and leadership. Throughout this discussion, we also heard about the role of evidence and the need for data that will back up how we are choosing which groups to listen to. It's not that we always need to target women, target youth, but of course, if we are, for example, designing a project about where certain elevators should go, we need to talk to people who are using wheelchairs or have different accessibility needs. So it's about finding the evidence to find that right target group. We heard that it takes time to build the trust and ownership with community, but that over time, it tends to sustain your investment better in the long term, especially with the project that Director General Hide shared in India. And over time, the governments will see the benefits of that type of high-level community support and build, hopefully, their own steps to have community engagement earlier and earlier in the process. We learned, or we had sort of an open dialogue together, I would say, between the audience and the panel about the need for transparency across different loan frameworks and development bank programming. And in fact, all of the parties involved in the design of that program have a role to keep making noise about what we want to see on the multi-sector scale from different projects. I'll end just to share with a sort of bullet point list of even more examples to build in community engagement into your projects. This will be from listen to co-create to lead. So when we talk about listening to our vulnerable communities, of course, there are traditional methods like surveys and focus groups, but also don't be afraid to listen to people in the language that they want to express themselves in. That might be through murals and art, visuals, poetry, spoken word. Often young people feel like they don't have the technical or academic language to express themselves, but they are able to express themselves through role play or non-traditional methods. We bring into the co-create phase. Bring in vulnerable voices, bring in young people into the co-creation phase before the project is finalized, before the design is set. Have a participatory walk around your community with different types of people to understand how the 5-year-old is experiencing that environment, how a person with accessibility needs experiences that environment. Do a participatory walk as much as possible. That's one of our best tools. Ask for video diaries and day in the life stories of the people that you are hearing from. And finally, let people lead. In addition to the decision makers we have in place through governments, through development banks, and even through civil society, how can we build a permanent mechanism to listen to each other? So this is not a one-time focus group or a one-time walk around the neighborhood together, but a permanent advisory council or a working group that brings in different sectors. So think about what the sustainable and recurring mechanism is that will make sure people have a dedicated voice in the creation, in the implementation, and in the evaluation of your work. We went through a lot of topics today, but I hope that you feel that everyone's voice was in some way represented through this panel, through your different votes. And thank you as well for participating with us on the panel. I would like to invite a big round of applause for our panelists who dedicated their time today. As we say, there should be nothing about youth without youth, and I hope that that will apply to all of the vulnerable groups that you work with. Thank you so much, and don't be shy to keep in touch with us. I will share our contact information on screen if the slide will change. We will see. And if not, then come up and talk to us. I think the slides might be frozen, so perhaps... Yes, here we go. All right. Well, let's keep in touch. Thank you all so much for your time today. And one more round of applause for our amazing panel.